Okay, I'd like to call to order the Economic Development Commission meeting, May 20th, 2025. It is 5:07. I'd like to acknowledge our members that are here tonight.
Yeah.
Two new associate members, Michael Magnanti. Magnanti, welcome. And Matt Trice, who is not here tonight, as well as Gopi is not here tonight.
Presently, he should be coming.
He should be coming shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll kick off with new business. Pat, if you want to give an update on the board meeting where they brought in the new associate members, they voted?
Yeah, so I mean, at our last meeting in April, we had a discussion at the group that was present just about whether or not the EDC wanted to look into having two new associate members. The conversation really was kind of around that, hey, we've had a lot of recent interest, and we want to expand the committee to try to provide an opportunity for more voices and more people to get involved. And the former members present agreed. So really, it was just a matter of just notifying the select board, and they would take that up at their last meeting. Since then, though, it's nothing crazy in terms of new business. It's, just we had town meeting pass, had a few zoning articles that went forward, so that was good. But other than that, I certainly, I guess we'll get into the topic later with our consultant in the commercial and economic development study. So that was a project that we had talked about, feels like a long time ago now, but had some delays with a separate supplemental funding source, but now we seem to be on track. But if you want to go over to our first
Yeah. Welcome, Mike, again. Thanks for volunteering your time. We're going to kick off with an update with Destination Downtown, the Mural Project, with Sarah and Rick.
Yeah. Oh.
I can hear you fine. Oh, you need a microphone?
He's telling you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying.
Sorry.
All right, thanks for letting us come in. Do you want me to give the update, Rick, or do you want to? Okay. So just for anyone who I don't know, my name is Sarah Khatib. I'm the president and founder of Destination Downtown. With me is a board member, Rick Ward, and I'll let him introduce himself in a second. But yeah, just briefly, Destination Downtown. We're a nonprofit, community-led organization focused on vitalizing downtown Walpole and supporting downtown businesses and the community, and really making or helping to make downtown Walpole a destination and a place where the community feels welcome and really wants to spend their time and their money, really. Rick, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Rick Ward, and I've been on the board for about a year now. And this whole process with the mural started in October when we had a vision of something that might be interesting to bring some creativity to downtown Walpole. So we came up with the idea of a mural and did our research and homework on how to conduct an RFP to find artists that would be qualified to be considered to be the artists. And so we went through a whole RFP process with 32 different artists, and we whittled it down to the one that is currently finishing up the project right now. There's a picture of the ribbon cutting from Walpole Day when it wasn't raining so hard. And we're in the very final stages of the mural creation. We just have to put some final touches on the QR code and the sponsors, the higher sponsors, and some other lettering and things like that. But I don't know if she's going to finish it by Friday, but we're hoping maybe Friday. But Thursday's a washout already. We know that. So definitely by Monday or Tuesday, but it could be done by the end of the week. And so we're really excited about it because people are interested in hearing more about the QR code, where you can just scan the QR code and it'll bring up 10 different sites on the mural that will help people identify sites they may or may not know about in Walpole, and if they're visitors, they'll get to learn a little bit more about Walpole, so that's kind of a nice interaction feature. And, yep, there's some more, another picture of it. Yeah, that's not the whole mural, that's just about 2/3 of it. There's a window on the left side that's not in that picture there. But we're excited that after spending $12,000 that was community raised through sponsorships and fundraising through the community and bank grants and the Walpole Cultural Council, we are just about at the end of the budget as well. So we want to start phase 2 fundraising, whereby we would even do more work in that area. Behind the building, there's a wall that was cleaned, and we have a bench and planters, thanks to the town. And we want to maybe have a trash barrel or a picnic table back there and do something with that whole area back there. But that's not, the vision isn't quite formulated yet, but we would like to do something to just make it a little bit more attractive back there.
Yeah, and we really see this whole project as an economic development, project, bringing vibrancy downtown, making it more enjoyable for folks to, be downtown, to discover new things, to enjoy public art, which, downtown Walpole doesn't have a lot of. So it's also like culturally enriching for the community. It's in the alleyway in between Donahue Real Estate and the Walpole Dance Center, which I don't know if you have any pictures before. It's just like, just asphalt and building. Like, it was kind of, boring and a little bit underutilized, but this gives some vibrancy, something unique, a destination for the community to go, enjoy, meet. Rick mentioned the planters provided by the town, and those were filled with flowers from local landscaping company, Forsberg Landscaping, so that we very much appreciate that contribution. And then also Adam Knighton Painting cleared off there's an adjacent wall a little bit back this way. He cleared that off, and he's willing to paint that as well if ever we can get some sunshine there. But yeah, I'd love to talk with you folks about your thoughts on it. If you have any feedback, this was one project. Maybe in the future we could do another location. We have to see kind of how the community responds and how the interest was from the businesses. The owner of Donahue Real Estate, Jay Donahue, was fantastic to work with. He was, fully on board. He served on the mural selection committee. He has been, great, and the whole business is very appreciative and embracing this idea. And so we hope, other Walpole businesses might see the benefit of public art as well.
And one of our initial goals was, people say that sometimes there's not a lot of parking in downtown Walpole, especially in the evenings with all the restaurants open. So this would give them a reason to park in the municipal parking lot and have to walk to the main street, and hopefully they'll take that alleyway to get to Main Street, to the restaurants or wherever they're going. So there was that kind of objective as well, to just get more people walking around, more bodies in downtown, and walking through the alleyway and finding interest in what's there, and making it easier to find get where you want to go, and utilizing that parking lot, because sometimes it's not even full and people are complaining about no parking, but they just don't want to walk the extra 50 or 100 feet, whatever it is. So we think it will help boost that kind of traffic with pedestrians as well.
Yeah, on that note, one thing that it would be great to have your support, or the support of the town, for those evening pass-throughs. There's really not a lot of lighting there, so if we could add some kind of ambiance lighting, or just more lighting that helps people feel secure and, that's safe, that they're walking through an alleyway, that we think would help, drive traffic and really capture more utilization of the alleyway. So that would be something if you all would be interested to assist with or, partner with. We think that could be a good component to phase 2.
I think that makes sense. Can you discuss it further, or I don't
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I mean, just to give general feedback on the mural itself, she did a fantastic job. It looks really great. I saw Rick on Walpole Day and was walking through with a gaggle of children, but they all loved it, and they loved pointing out all the spots that they recognized, and so really good engagement just from that. But I'm curious how your team plans to kind of track the success of the project. Like, are you going to do a post-mortem survey, or like, how are you gonna kind of make sure that people are walking through and seeing it, and that the businesses are kind of highlighting that it's there to help with the parking situation?
Yeah, well, we'll continue to, engage with the businesses, probably have a survey. And Rick mentioned the QR code, and so we have a dynamic QR code so we can track, how many people are looking at that. So that's one way that we can measure the engagement. So yeah, just continue to, engage with the community, talk with people, talk with business owners, and, see where people are.
Great job getting it done.
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
It's never easy.
We're open to questions. Please ask us questions.
How long do you think that the mural's gonna last? Is there a life to it?
That's a good question. Our
10, 20 years, I
10 to 20
mean,
years,
yeah, it's,
So she's putting 2 layers of paint. Everywhere you see paint, it's not 1, it's 2. And then when she's all done with the mural, she's gonna put a
sealant.
sealant
Layer
over it.
sealant on it?
So it's gonna be 3 layers to protect it, so hopefully it will last, she thinks 10 to 20 years.
Yeah, and it's a anti-graffiti sealant, so, it should preserve, the vibrancy and the, the intactness of the whole mural for many, many years.
Yeah, good.
I know there's one in downtown Mansfield, I think I mentioned that before.
Yeah.
A little connection to that, but yeah, that's 10, 15 years now, and still looks like it's brand new,
Yeah.
so.
Great.
Do you have funds to maintain it if it ages faster than expected, or indeed if somebody damages it or applies graffiti? What does the maintenance and sort of just checking up on it look like? Is that something you'll do? I mean, we all can keep an eye on it, but.
Yeah, I mean,
what do you foresee?
we have limited funds. If there were to be like a big event, we'd probably have to come back to the community for some help. But yeah, we have limited funds. Barring some kind of disaster, it should be relatively low maintenance, and, not much funds needed to maintain it. But we have a great relationship with the artists. And part of the contract is, if some part of the mural were damaged, we'd go back to her so that she can restore it, to its proper, artistic shape. So that's, that's part of our plan. But we hope it's gonna be relatively maintenance-free for many years.
It'd be nice to put a low-key light on it or over it, like a rope light over it, to add light to the alley and to maybe give the little bit of nighttime life to the mural as well.
Right,
Some string.
yeah.
Yeah, it could be like
Yeah,
a nice,
to-
nice way to get to the main street from the parking lot.
Enjoy the mural, and then also, yeah, just kind of for security and like.
Lighting the alleyway, light the mural to light the alleyway.
How far down that path have you gone? Have you talked to anybody about whether it be cost or donating their time to, can you pull electrical from the Donahue Building or the Walpole Dance Studio? Like,
There is an outlet there, and Jay Donahue said he's open to, paying for the electricity. If we had, he suggested maybe some like down lighting, so that it kind of like lights up the mural, which is good. And that may be something that we pursue, but that doesn't give a lot of security. Like, I mean, it,
Solve all the-
yeah,
yeah.
it's like, you can see the mural, but then there's this other component, that we'd love to have, it just be more lighting and more pedestrian friendly you know, during the evening time as well. So, yeah, we're in talks, you know, with the local businesses and the community, but that's something that we'd like to pursue.
I'm curious, like, if there's anywhere else that you could pull power from to get lighting in that area, I'm sure, like off the street even, but.
And where if there's a street light, that's, yeah, a question for parks,
Yeah.
or highway, rather.
But that's a common thing that I've heard from other businesses in the different alleyways downtown. You know, there really isn't a lot of lighting for pedestrians, you know, who park in the lots and then, you know, walk towards Main Street. There isn't a lot of lighting in several of the alleyways. So, I mean, overall, that's one of our goals, you know, for downtown, is to make it more accessible, you know, day and night for the community to utilize downtown.
Sorry, one more. Would you remind us there's no plans for like a bench or something like that, right? People are just going to walk
There is
by.
a bench.
There is a bench.
Yeah,
There is a
provided by
bench.
the town. One of those, like, black
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
okay,
metal
cool.
benches.
Awesome. My mistake.
Or- yeah,
Heavy.
I don't know, yeah, it's really heavy.
Good.
But yeah, perhaps some other seating, we'll have to see, you know, how things go. Talking with the adjacent business owners, they're in favor of it, they're open to it, but also they don't want to make it so attractive that, you know, let's say kids or whoever overnight are gonna
Yeah.
come take their bottles and, like, you know, leave them on
Yeah.
the asphalt. So, you know, we want to have a balance of usable for the community, but maybe not so attractive for undesirable uses.
So what's, I know you guys are still fundraising, what's your goal there? Is that just kind of, do you have I know you don't have a set project in mind, maybe something with the low retaining wall in the back, but is there another location or like a threshold you're trying to meet in terms of? Like
For
an
the,
next
like,
phase?
the phase two?
Yeah, or anything like that.
I mean, you know, a few $1,000s, I think we could do something with it. You know, it will just depend on how much we can raise and, you know, what is the appetite of the adjacent property owners to adding lighting, to adding maybe additional seating. So, we're kind of in the exploratory phase right now.
Yeah, because there is a cement wall there that we had cleaned off. There's a lot of moss growing on it. It's been completely cleaned off. And that would, it's only about 4 feet high, maybe 5 feet at the most. So, but it's very long. It could be another opportunity for more art. So that might help spruce it up even more.
Is that privately
Yeah.
owned as well?
Yeah, it's all private property, basically, but with access
Yeah.
to the street in the parking lot.
Yeah, so we'd love to have the support of the EDC, perhaps a financial contribution or a partnership with some kind of lighting or further
Amenities.
vitalizing the alleyway or other projects downtown.
Yeah, I think, I think having a number, if you have something in mind or something specific that we can contribute, I think we would be open to discussing it. I don't know what the financials are. I know we have a budget, but
So this is where it kind of dives into what was Main Street Live and the
Yeah.
conversation around the future of that event and the future of that funding. And that's really a conversation for all y'all, in terms of being the Economic Development Commission. That was obviously a big fundraiser for a number of years. I'm looking at Donnell just because I know Donnell manages it. So that's really this board's call in
Yeah,
terms of
what
what
you
they
wanna
want to
do,
do. If that's
Especially with a
more,
lot of new members here and Mark gone and everything.
Yeah.
We should put it on the agenda and have a discussion about it.
yeah.
yeah. I've had, I mean, there's always a few calls here and there's Main Street Live coming back or what's going on, so that might be another, I know.
People ask us too, like, is it coming back?
I
Are you
know.
gonna do it? No.
Yeah. I know we discussed that last year too, that's just kind of, there's another group that wants to take that on. That
Oh,
seems
yeah?
to be more, well, I know that was at the conversation really last year in terms of trying to find someone else to run Main Street Live, or?
Well, we tried with several organizations
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and nobody was interested in taking it,
Yeah,
you know, and keeping it as a fundraiser. And I know Harry was gonna try to look into anybody if he knew anybody was interested in it, and we just really didn't have anybody that wanted to step up. I mean, as we said when we were finishing that up, I'd be happy to help anybody that wants to and get them through the first couple of years and get them up and going on it. It's just, you need the manpower,
Yeah,
you know?
I've had some folks from organizations I won't name here since we're on television. You know, I think they'd like to understand the scope a little better. A lot of people have asked me, how big a lift is it? How much work is it? Is there a binder? Is there a plan? So yeah, we should have a discussion here and hash out, cobble together some of those details, because I say to them, I don't really know. I think it's quite large, but that's not enough for them. So, yeah.
So maybe we add that to the agenda, we add the contribution, we'll try and figure out
I mean,
what,
if you want, maybe we can get up, like, work up a proposal, kind of with some numbers and share with you all and see if that's something that,
yeah, I think it's always helpful to know, you know, if you guys have an idea of what you want for the lights, if you were able to get some kind of cost associated with it, it'd be helpful for us to understand, that way we would know what would be useful to you.
yeah.
And then even if we can only contribute a portion of it or something, it helps.
Yeah.
I'm willing to look at it.
Also, the other option is that when we know the cost, it's more like we can put it out for some donations, so like people can put their name, like how they put it in the bench. So they can also pay for it and have a name on it.
ideally with donations and something like that, I would probably defer to Destination Downtown.
Yeah, because we're a nonprofit, so it's
Or a
probably
public
easier
entity,
for us to accept donations and, but yeah, we're
Okay.
happy to, like, you know, partner with the town on any initiatives that align.
Okay. Lauren, I'm just looking at you. So, yeah, we'll have that as a topic for June, you know.
Yeah, we'll do like a financial overview, we'll talk about Main Street Live, and then,
Yeah.
yeah, because I don't know what the impact, how much you guys fund, like, I don't know what the impact was of that event, and like what losing that would mean for them.
Yeah, and with all the new members, I think that's probably a good idea to kind of just, we'll have that as topic for the next meeting.
Great. Thanks, guys, for coming
Okay.
in.
Great,
Thank you.
all right. If you don't mind, I'm probably gonna stay for a couple other items on your
Please do.
meeting, but, thank you.
All right.
All right, so I think we're on to our partner here from MAPC, Commercial and Industrial Study Update. So you have a you are going to use that. I don't know if you have control of it, or if
I
Pat's
have
gonna
one, but go ahead.
run it for you. Is it Guardi? Nice to meet you.
So everybody, I'll just do a little bit of overview. So this project is a look at our existing industrial and commercial property, as well as zoning, and just kind of an overview of how well are we utilizing that existing land? How well are we zoning for the future? Are we providing enough uses that are really kind of enticing or utilized in just, you know, current society? And a lot of that goes back to our zoning bylaws, which we're also in the middle of a rewrite process as well. So this project is great because it kind of ties into that and looks at that specific area of the town and the future of those locations. So we were able to get a grant through MAPC for technical assistance. This process started probably like last year, really. And so from that time, I know Kurdeep's been doing a lot of background research and gathering data. We applied for supplemental funding. I think I've mentioned this like a million times already, and a little bit of delay just finding out the outcome of that, but we were approved for that. So that's helpful for this project because it extends the scope and extends the amount of data we'll be able to get from this project. So I will turn it over to Kurdeep now. She wants to.
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Gurdeep Kaur. I am a Senior Economic Development Planner at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, which is your regional planning agency. I know that some of you I've already presented to before, and feel free to ask questions if I am speaking off topic or I ramble. I have an agenda. So these are the project partners. The team behind us, of course, includes our Chief of Economic Development and our Land Use Manager. And then we've been, of course, working closely with Patrick on this. And the Economic Development Commission is our advisory group here. This is the agenda, but I do welcome this to be more of a discussion than anything. So the preliminary draft of the existing conditions was circulated to the commission at the start of last month. If there's anything you want to add here or something that you really wanted to discuss from that report, feel free to, of course, bring that up. Okay, so the study existing conditions were lengthy, and I recognize that. So in the interest of time, I am going to guide the focus of this presentation to the land use portion of it. So in that, as part of that study, we also reviewed all of these previous studies that the town has conducted. In addition to this, we actually went back and reviewed the 2004 master plan as well. I think there's a few others to add here. So all that to say that for future recommendations, when we get to that phase, we do want to build off of what has previously been put forth, vetted, approved by the town. And we want to make sure how do we move on and move forward through that. So these are just some very high-level takeaways from those previous studies, divided into 3 categories. Of course, land use takes up a larger physical space here because that is the focus of the study, and then tying it together with more programmatic policy suggestions as well. So this is starting off with a brief overview, a map you guys are all very familiar with, a few quick facts about the town today, and then we're going to dive into the land use analysis portion. So, sorry, I'm just going to take a pause there. Everybody is familiar with the draft of the study, skimmed through it a little bit? Okay. I do want to acknowledge I already found some typos in there that we're correcting, but feel free to bring those up. All right, so going into the land use analysis. We're starting with the industrial and limited manufacturing zoning districts. Just some disclaimers. I'm going to use the term industrial to classify both industrial and limited manufacturing tonight. And then also conforming and consistent are 2 different things, but I'm going to try to keep it accurate as possible. All of these numbers are preliminary. Of course, a deeper dive into the permits is required, and a little bit more research to fine-tune this. But this is the larger takeaway. There are 324 parcels in the town of Walpole that are zoned for either industrial or limited manufacturing use. Of those, 128 parcels have a use on them that is consistent with that zoning. And by use, I'm going to use that term interchangeably with business, unless someone just owns a property where they conduct an industrial hobby. But I'm going to say that equates to 128 businesses that are of industrial nature, and they're consistent with their underlying zoning. In the town of Walpole altogether, there are 202 parcels that are occupied by an industrial business. Some of them are in that zoning, some of them are outside of the zoning. We know for certain that at least 20 of those are outside the zoning. This number is a little bit tricky, and I'll explain why in a minute. So right now, this is just an overview of the industrial and limited manufacturing zones and where they are in the town. And this is where industrial uses are located in general. So you can faintly see the outline of the underlying zoning districts, but basically everything in lime green is an industrial use. One of the items to, okay, I can point. To note here is like, there are some outliers, such as this. This is an easement for utilities, but they are quantified as parcels, but I don't think they are significant to the findings of this research here. So this is what the uses that are consistent with their land use. The parcels we mentioned before, they're within the correct zoning district, and they have the correct or the consistent business use on them. So, sorry, just want to make sure, there's a few maps I have to go through here. So this is the one, this map depicts the zoning districts as before, and the parcels in red are those that are located outside of the correct zoning district. So they're industrial uses, but they are outside of the zoning district. And then I left the utilities on here just for reference. And there's a little bit of mismatch with parcel boundaries and zoning boundaries, et cetera. Going a little bit further, so when we look at the zoning districts themselves, even though there's those over 300 parcels, not all of them, some of them have inconsistent uses on them. So they have non-industrial uses located in the industrial zone. And this will be an area of further research. The blue indicates commercial uses in particular that are in the industrial zones. And we want to figure out what brought them there, why they're there, could they not find other appropriate tenant spaces in town, or what their use is. Maybe it is more akin to manufacturing, but, for example, auto repair is kind of one of those gray areas sometimes. Okay, so the findings, as before, there's, in those 324 parcels, 54 of those are commercial, and they're in the industrial zone. This is just like a high-level summary of the industrial limited manufacturing. I'm going to pause here before I dive in and give you some more numbers about commercial. Is that all?
The industrial tax rate and the commercial tax rate are the same, right? So if you're in an industrial, it's an industrial and commercial zone.
Yeah.
Tax rate. Just curious, sorry.
Thank you. Moving into the commercial land uses, a similar situation where there's 267 total parcels available for businesses in Walpole. 220 businesses exist, storefront businesses exist in Walpole, whether they, 220 businesses exist on parcels. They're not all storefronts, and then home businesses are another caveat that we don't need to dive deeply into.
Is that essentially like if it's a building that may have additional, like multiple offices, and so it's not actually a storefront, but it could be multiple tenants within a building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or one business that might have 3 different entities registered at the same address because they do different things. 146 of those parcels have a consistently, are consistent with the businesses on them, and then 74 commercial businesses are located completely outside of these zoning districts. These numbers do need to be further analyzed, so I'm just going to say the larger picture here is that we have some mismatch here.
Do we know why all this?
So we're going to get into that. Yeah. So these are the zoning districts. The zoning districts are spread out a bit. There's the Highway Business District, Central Business District, and then just there's a spackling of parcels that are zone business
And that's
across the town.
That's a good example of, I I mean, you see this in some towns where it's like, obviously, years go by, here's your residential, here's your commercial, and then things change, things get broken up, different uses are needed, and sometimes towns are like, oh, that's always been a barber shop, so we're gonna keep that business forever, and so you get this spot zoning that exists. And this is why you kinda get this like shotgun effect of a couple of our business districts. It's, doesn't really make sense, but it does if you see the property, but.
Yes. So here, it's faint to see. It outlines the business districts and then shows where all the commercial uses are located. There's a concentration of commercial uses down here, and then they've really kind of grown along the central business district area. And then let me go on to
So I think that's the industrial park, the lower end.
down here.
Yeah.
And these are the businesses that are consistent with their land use, they're commercial, they're in a commercial zone. The ones in red here are the ones, this one shows it more clearly, that are inconsistent with their land use. Let's see. So again, just like in the industrial map, all of the ones here on this map in red are parcels in the commercial zones, but they have non-commercial uses on them. I was trying to like bring in colors that could like be seen, but sorry.
So it's a non-commercial use within a commercial zone?
Yes.
Currently in red? Okay.
Do you have kind of a breakdown of what those non-commercial uses are? Is it housing or is it industrial uses?
We have that, and I can include that in the next draft.
I'm just curious. Thank you.
Again, a general overview. There's generally some mismatch. Okay. I know you guys have had these maps, and I don't want to ramble. I just want to check in here if there's any clarifying questions, any other further questions.
So I know some of the data you looked at with in terms of both, we have like, business listing, we have obviously assessor's information. You mentioned there's obviously some situations where, you have multiple LLCs on a property, and so is there ever kind of like, I guess, in terms of the accuracy of all the information, I mean, how close do you think we're?
It's very accurate, but
Okay.
but this is a draft form.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think it's as accurate as we're going to get, especially with tax assessor's data.
Yeah, so it's the assessor's data, so obviously it has the use code on it, it's got obviously the owner, with the, address and all that good stuff.
Yes.
So it was kind of hard to summarize from the maps, but I'm sure but do you have the vacancy of each of the different use types? Like how much vacant space is there in Walpole? How much vacant or commercial space versus industrial? So we can kind of see what the needs are and.
Yes, I do have that. That number is in the study, and I can pull it.
I think I did read through the study, kind of. I have notes.
The commercial vacancy in Walpole is currently 7.1%, and the industrial vacancy is 4.6%.
And in your findings, was that determined, those are low vacancy rates, I think, by anybody's standards, I would assume. I don't know what that is compared to like our other towns in the area, but is there, I guess, an underlying section of, I guess you just kind of showed it, but are certain areas where there's industrial or commercial more vacant than others? Do you have that information kind of broken down even further? Do you understand what
Geographically,
yeah, like where is the highest vacancy of the industrial versus, I feel like I'd also like to understand how that ranks compared to our neighboring towns or like comparable towns, because I I do feel like 5 and 7% is great, but I could be off, I'm not sure.
Yes, I can be sure to highlight that in the next draft or in the next presentation.
Yeah, just things I'm more curious about. I don't know, does anybody have any other questions?
I had the same question. It sounds reasonable or low, is it? It's 5, 6, 7%?
Is this
Good.
level of, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
Yeah,
off.
go ahead.
Is this level of mix and matching something you've seen in other towns before? Okay, so this is not like a unique, unprecedented situation. Okay.
With historic towns, you're always going to have this. I think the good news is that businesses are existing, and the next part of this presentation is going into how do we do, what is the goal, and how do we support businesses, not penalize them just because they're existing in the wrong place, right?
Right, like a non-conforming use, if we are going to change zoning, how do you protect the folks that have been there? That's kind of one of my thoughts too.
So I'll add the questions that were brought up tonight. These are the additional research questions that we will be pursuing. What's the nature of the non-conforming uses? Are they actually problematic? Or, I mean, I've come across a scenario in another community where it was a sandwich shop in an industrial park, but they had to jump through all these hoops and hurdles just to stay permitted. Yeah. But then there's, the opposite too, where something is certainly a nuisance, especially when it's located near residential. And then this will be, these will be the further research questions.
In terms of, I guess, in terms of which businesses cause a nuisance, and there's obviously, there can be data from that, like in terms of like a complaint or something like that to the building department, but I guess be interested to figure out, what nuisance can be subjective if someone's like, hey, I don't really care, and then the other neighbor's like, it's way too loud. So I guess how about getting that information, and that'd be interesting.
Manufacturing probably is.
Yeah, I mean, I know one property just near here that had issues back in 2020 because it's an LM, it's an industrial use, and they were moving steel beams, and they have residential homes all around it, and so that was one situation that I guess in my time here that I saw where it was any use that used to be a factory back 50 80 years ago, and its location no longer really kind of makes sense for industrial uses because it's just surrounded by single and two-family homes. So.
In the central business district, I've looked at the zoning, like the zoning bylaws, but I haven't really been able to kind of determine what exactly is allowable within the central business district. There's no industrial, right? So
No.
Is it just commercial and housing?
I mean, we have to go through it line by line, but primarily, yeah, like something we classified in terms of, for like commercial industrial between, business, which is pretty general, and then there's wholesale industrial, so something that's more like high intensive. And so usually those more high intensive uses are gonna be just only within either industrial, LM, or highway business, for some of them. But generally, commercial, the typical, what you would think in terms of service, retail, office space, that's, all allowed within the CBD and the business district.
Also, I think for,
And restaurants, yeah.
We'd like to encourage more restaurants.
Yes.
also for the next set of questions, also trying to understand, say, for example, if you're talking about some commercial establishments within industrial, then the nature of business helps to understand whether they are like complementary to the industrial or not, right? So
Yeah.
that also is important to know.
That's a good point. I was just thinking too, because this is the topic going on right now, but the Walpole Industrial Park is a good example. There's commercial businesses there, but because they're allowed under the zoning, but it's squarely industrial. Is it being utilized for industrial, and is that still in demand, or is that not really what seems to be leasing?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so just this was a refresher of the project's focus, evaluating and figuring out the zoning, figuring out if the current zoning districts and bylaws are consistent, and whether the location is appropriate in relation to existing residential and environmentally sensitive locations. And the questions you guys have already kind of kicked it off with tie in to the discussion questions I brought for y'all today. And, well, you can take any of those, but I think one of the ones I am curious about is to really talk about what is the goal of the zoning and land use alignment, whether, you know, an easy answer could be to redraw the district boundaries, but do we want to do that? Do we want to get those businesses to locate to certain locations? And then the next phase, we'll figure out, like, how do we make that happen? But is consistency a priority? It is good for the business because then they're able to expand, intensify when the zoning underneath allows them to. But we want to make sure we're not just trying to be conforming for conforming's sake. And what are we doing to enhance that business's livelihood in the town?
I think based on the assessment of the low vacancy rates, I would think that any improvements to zoning would be to support development of bringing new business to town, right? Or how do we, again, I guess, get even further down to 0% vacancy in these commercial spaces, especially like in the central business district. I think it was up there in the report somewhere there was some vacancy in the downtown area. And so what's driving that? And are there other uses that should be supported in that area or an expansion of that area to better drive economic growth downtown? Since that's where we want like a growth.
I think from my perspective, I'm also thinking if you're trying to increase the tax base, we also want to identify newer zones or
Yeah.
newer opportunities, right? So we look at the existing ones and anything complementary or helping each other type of businesses and zones that we can create surrounding them. If there is any opportunity, then we should start looking at that as well, right? So that can help us increase the tax base and attract more newer businesses.
I guess another, Tom.
To me, this is a set of data beautifully presented, but it's not clear to me yet if there's sort of a problem or a set of problems, something that we're trying to answer sort of a priori, up front, or, so A, is there, or are there, or is it more B? I think what I'm hearing is we could redraw some boundaries and we could do X, Y, and Z, but should we, or is it mostly smooth sailing and let's focus on attracting new business and lowering the vacancy rate a little bit? It's not clear to me that there's a problem or set of problems. Maybe I'm bringing the wrong kind of
Yes,
perspective. That's
and
so. Yep. Go ahead.
No, I think it's how you evaluate the question, or is it a problem?
Yeah.
The question, like a question could be, is it a problem that the vacancy rate is that number? I would suggest no. No matter how many units we had available, if that was the vacancy rate, I think that would be acceptable. The question then becomes, again, do you want to keep it the way it is? And in 10 years, your residential tax bill will be $20,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because it all comes down to they like to call it the switch, or the comparison of residential taxes income versus commercial income. If we look at Norwood, if we look at Dedham, if we look at Canton, their revenue is about 30% of our balance, I guess. Where Walpole we're around 12 to 13%. So that's why most of the dollars have to come from the residential sector. But then again, if people are fine with that, then that's how they want this town to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's not up to us, I guess, at the end of the day.
But it is up to us to look into that question. Is there more locations that can be expanded for more commercial? Again, I mean, could we have another 20 landscapers in this town that can make $1 million a year? Absolutely. I mean, those guys flourish around here. So it's just a matter of what the town overall wants to be in the future. Do they want to just be a residential town, like a Sharon or a Sherburne? You know,
Yeah.
they just want to be that way, and they don't care if their tax bill's 25 grand.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I think maybe I brought some incorrect bias to the discussion. I think maybe I view all this as, what do we need to do to be attractive to small businesses, to get more businesses, to do more stuff, to have more businesses? But you're right, it's really the Economic Development Commission. It doesn't have to be business focused only, could rely on, largely on residential
I think I read,
base, right? So.
I think it
that's
was like
just
16% comes from the commercial tax base or something. Is that what it is? I think you had it in your report.
Yeah,
Which is, I mean, again, I'd love to see how that compares to some of the neighboring towns and.
yeah.
I think a potential problem, I think you kind of hinted at this, was you said there was like a business and industrial, like a commercial in an industrial zone that had to go through a bunch of hoops just to like stay where it was.
Yeah, well, it's more of an industrial use in an industrial zone, but the zone is, over
Adjacent.
time, it's just, you would never zone like that typically, right? It's a block, it's an island surrounded by residential, and so
So,
improper practices that were done previously in terms of zoning, it's not atypical for around here. Like, I just know in surrounding communities, you'll see like, hey, that's a gas station, it's always been a gas station, but guess what? If you're allowing for, if it's a big enough property and it's surrounded by residential and it was allowed for that use, when someone, time changes, it's no longer a gas station, it could be a much more high intensive use. And that's a good example of like, maybe something to reevaluate if it makes sense to change.
well, yeah, I was just gonna say a potential problem is, I agree that our vacancy rates sound pretty good, at least on the surface. But if we did want to tick those down a point or two, not having a mix and match, like, can I have my business here? Can it be there? What hoops do I have to jump through to be here or next to this residential zone or whatever? If we can simplify that in a way, that might make it a little more appealing for newer businesses to come in.
And I think
Go ahead.
that question was exactly what I was kind of hoping for us to get thinking about, because there's no one single indicator of like economic vitality. And when you look at vacancy rates, even if the vacancy rate was higher, that could indicate that rental values are either too high or something's going on there. If it was a 0% vacancy rate, that might mean that you're actually driving businesses out because they're not being able to find an affordable place to locate within town. So we can provide some more information there. This is very dry data intentionally because I want to know your feedback to it. Yeah.
Well, I do know, and this is more anecdotal than like hard data, but I mean, my wife grew up in this town, and she grew up off of like Main Street, and there's like that secondary like plaza over there with like, I think there's like the Walpole Pharmacy and whatnot. And I mean, she's just noted as she grew up, like a lot of businesses in that plaza would come and go pretty frequently, like 2 or 3 years before they would be shut out, or the new Cosmos. I think that's been like 3 or 4 places, different places in her lifetime. So, I mean, that could be an issue of, if retention rather than drawing them in.
So I was also looking at, say, for example, the right question about like benchmarking with other nearby towns, right? Like what's the commercial tax base? So if it is, say, for example, 30% in the nearby towns and we are only 16, then our goal is how do we rezone some of these to increase that, like potentially increase that base, right? Like work
Or
towards that.
even regrouping may drive better economic growth in a certain area, like you're saying, if there's a steel, like somebody, a subcontractor, I'm just, yeah.
I tried to pick on it, but yeah.
No, love the steel guys, need them.
It's a good example, I know.
Yeah, but just like as residential gets more dense in a lot of Walpole and will continue to do so, because that's also like a big part of our charge is like, how do you bring more affordable housing to the suburbs? But yeah, I think looking at what the zones are adjacent to is a good idea, and maybe seeing how we can better group, because it does look very sporadic, which again, like you said, it's probably very, very common for these towns.
I think that rezoning is a monumental task.
So it's not something I
Just
would,
to say that, now, especially for an old New England town like this, where the zoning spread the way it is. And the other problem we have is that in our commercial properties, just being taken away more and more by residential uses. And that's compounding it, the whole problem, you know? And then we have been trying to change, you know, one of the slides you put up there was a non-commercial use in a commercial, in a highway business zone. One of them was my project up there, which I did, which was limited manufacturing when I built the project. And then it was rezoned to highway business, you know? And that represents almost 50% of what's on that slide, you know? In terms of the red on there. And I get why they did it, because does a limited manufacturing should be up on the highway? Probably not. But that's the way it was zoned way back in the 50s, when it actually was rezoned from a residential use into a limited manufacturing use. But back then, the limited manufacturing was much more diverse in the uses that it allowed.
Why is that a bad or an improper use, like of a highway business? I would think that wouldn't be a terrible spot for limited manufacturing, since it's kind of away from the residential.
It is, but I think the highway business was supposed to be geared more towards retail type
Like
and, you know, more
Customer
like,
facing.
yeah, in
Like things
businesses
people
that,
could roll
you
off the
know, do
highway
that.
and do.
Than a business that more or less doesn't deal with the public directly, you know? Which is what a lot of the uses up there are,
Yeah.
you know? But you know, it's so hard here in a small New England town where, you know, it's grown over the years where we've tried to add commercial base, but it's a fight with you guys surrounded by so much residential. I mean, then you gotta go before town meeting and get a 2/3 vote to do it, and that's even harder, you know? So as you see your commercial base dwindling away as more and more residential uses come in and take it away, it's hard. So the only way you can kind of compensate that is to allow more uses in what's existing in those zones and make it more advantageous for somebody to come into it.
I think that's a good point in terms of why there's a lot of much more commercial uses that are now allowed within industrial zones. And so it seems to be, you know, you want them to have, don't want vacancies, you want to lease out the space, and so rather than preserve it solely for industrial, changing it some of the commercial allows for a more flexibility of that area.
And then, of course, a lot of that's changing as more technology goes. I mean, downtowns nowadays are just basically service. You know, before there used to be a lot of retail, and now it's way more service than it was retail. You know, back in, as we go through some of these studies, they're trying to encourage more retail to come downtown and to make it more vibrant. But it's harder. You got Amazon and you got the, you know, internet going, and it's just harder for a small business to compete and to open up retail.
Yeah, I would agree.
We could, do we want to move on to anything that was surprising in the study that you found, or in the presentation today? Anything unexpected?
I guess going back to what everyone kind of mentioned in terms of like regional as well. I mean, if anything, some of those numbers in terms of vacancies or even percentage of land area within our surrounding communities. Are we in line with everybody else, or do we, you know, are we lacking? Do we provide too much? Do we provide area that's zoned for use that's not actually usable? Which, yeah, doesn't change anything. I just know, like, you know, we have the, I guess the Great Cedar Swamp or whatever it is, all, I think it's zoned industrial, unless I'm mixing that up with something else, but that's a good example of that, something that might skew the land area.
the outcome of this study, how is it gonna be any different than all the other studies we've done, which have recommended a lot of the stuff that I imagine gonna come out of here? The question is getting it all in and getting something to change about it. I know the master plan now is just almost ready to be completed, right? And they're at that point, and then we're gonna come in with these comments after the master plan's coming in, and the next time they're gonna update or change the master plan might be 10, 15 years down the road, and might be a whole different set of circumstances there. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I would say this action item in particular is from the, I guess, the current draft master plan. And so that's why it was, you know, reevaluating and then focus squarely on land use. You know, a lot of our previous studies were, you know, they had good recommendations. I think so. The main thing is always focused around the downtown. That seems to be a big kind of a, you know, how's parking, how's the use of the buildings, what can we do to obviously increase, you know, pedestrian traffic. But the intention of this obviously is to kind of look at the town as a whole. And from my perspective, obviously, there's a lot of great findings that we can find from this, and obviously with the EDC, you know, your interest and what you're looking to get out of some of this data. I look at it also to see, you know, as we're looking to try to update and provide better use of the land, you know, maybe not so much as the rezoning of some of the properties, because I do agree that's some areas in towns, I think, where it makes sense, and other areas where you're probably going to be, you know, it's not a battle worth fighting. But the uses in particular, and where they're located, that might be something that is helpful, especially in like a zoning rewrite, to make sure we're putting that in the right area in town.
Yeah, I think also,
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
sure.
Have you seen any towns like combined zonings? So instead of like restricted to only industrial, like industrial or highway business, and just kind of open up the possibilities of, you know, more types of businesses? Instead of, you know, like, we'll pick, this is where highway business, and then, you know, 2 parcels over, it's gonna be industrial, and, yeah, just wondering if that might be something?
Yeah, I think, so, I think to Danelle's point, like, yeah, zoning changes over time, land uses change over time, people are going to set up shop where they need to set up shop. So this isn't going to be future-proof, but we want to make it, we want to build on the assets that Walpole has, which is quite a thriving business district, business community. The infrastructure that the town provides is very competitive compared to other towns. And there's a lot of potential to unlock here, and it's it's up to, you know, you guys, how you want to do that. I think what you're also might be alluding to is like a form of umbrella zoning, and I've seen that. And some towns have done this like previously, and basically how it's based on the intensification and the intensity of the use allowed. So basically, it's saying, oh, everything allowed in light manufacturing would be allowed in industrial, everything allowed in central business district would be allowed in highway business district, and then like you kind of tier up, but not everything can be allowed, like something in heavy industrial wouldn't be allowed in the one below it, right? So that tiered kind of system does exist, and we can explore if that would be something appropriate here.
Sarah, and what you're saying there, a lot of that has to be, she was saying about the infrastructure that's there. I mean, a heavy industrial use where you got a lot of trucking and stuff like that, you gotta have the right roadways, and it's gotta be set up to easy access onto the highways, and then mix that in with can't go by and can't go through residential. What do? You know? So it doesn't make sense to rezone some of the stuff that's there, you know, if the infrastructure's not there to take it on, you know?
Right, but would you think, I mean, businesses wanna make money, right? So they're not going to pursue a place where they can't make money, most likely. So, I mean, just opening up the possibility so that you can attract more types of businesses.
And I think that's where the town kind of plays a role as well. I think that different and unique business districts serve different purposes. And while there's the downtown strip that everybody wants and desires, and we want to facilitate that, there's also the other more hidden uses that do carry the weight of the tax base here, that also need to be supported. And so there won't be like one policy fits all, but I think we do need to go deeper into more intentional strategies for the different business districts that exist, and then also deciding how to support and how to massage everything to fit where it needs to fit. Yeah, and also taking into account that rezoning is not an easy task.
Or maybe utilize also like a design review so that, you get the town's perspective of sewer and water, of economic development, and so you can kind of guide the growth that way. I don't know if that would be helpful, or that would be another layer of regulation that people don't want.
Usually, I'm familiar with design review when it comes to like architectural or like you're thinking of like a downtown having like design guidelines. But I guess what I'm trying to think of here.
Is it Westwood has a design review, and certain areas, they have to go through the design review process. It's not meant to be what our town likes to just say no to things, but it's more of just, to kind of guide the growth that the town wants and make sure that businesses are appropriate. I'm not sure if that would be helpful, or it would be more another layer of regulation, but maybe.
I think they would have to go through a design review if they were building a building, right? If
Yeah,
they-
I mean,
if-
that's
Yeah.
general site plan review, but I mean, I guess
Oh, they would have to do a design
I'm not completely familiar with the concept you're trying to, I'm familiar with design review, and maybe Cody knows too, in terms of like, it's architectural review. It's
Yeah,
more
if
of
there's like a downtown, like
design
aesthetic or something in this central business district that you're trying to maintain, yeah, like, Westwood, I can imagine has it, or,
Definitely Nantucket.
yeah, like if there's an aesthetic that they don't want somebody coming in with like a McDonald's in downtown or whatever.
And then there's like mitigation measures that businesses are required for like sound and noise and smell and all of that. Okay. So we are drafting a survey, and this is part of our community outreach to help inform where we're going with all of this data and where the town wants to go. And we would appreciate your input into the development of those questions and what you want to find out, and we can help shape those. Any ideas you have, any comments you have of what about this? We have the draft here, just for your review, and then if you want to add items to this.
Feedback is important for kind of stacking that data, providing helpful data to the purpose of the study. But I guess, I know we have the existing conditions, and they're still in a work in progress, but obviously having stuff posted online, I can provide a QR code and just try to have people direct them to that area as well.
Even you can share the QR code in all the restaurants and establishments, right? Like, and people can just scan and take the survey if they want, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, make it easy.
I think to Danelle's point, maybe it depends on the nature of the questions.
Survey is also in draft form, so if there are more technical questions we want to get to, survey is also in draft form, so if there are more technical questions we want to get to, then we can adjust accordingly.
I also wonder if, like, as one of the outcomes of all of this, it's like, if we don't increase the zoning reform is, like Donnell mentioned, is really a big undertaking, but if there is a business that wants to open up and their use is non-conforming in the zone where they want to open, like, what is their path? Do they have a path? is there like some kind of hand-holding that this team or other teams can do to kind of walk them through the process and give them the best effort to maybe make it happen? So that they feel like welcomed and they feel like we're trying to help them, and, you know, it's not always up to us at the end of the day. It's the planning board, or I don't know who makes that final decision, but, just wondering, like, as one of the outcomes or one of the possible next steps for us, how do we help businesses that do wanna open in a non-conforming use? If it's inappropriate, within reason.
Yes. That's actually a really good point. And one of the challenges with outreach is reaching who's not there yet, or also reaching who has left due to what reasons, and trying to figure that out. So and that's what we're really relying on all of you to give us, like that ear into the community. So we can come up with a survey and we can come up with the questions, but reaching those people is what we're looking to your help for.
All right, thank you.
A couple business groups, association downtown, the chamber here, so couple resources.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I could-
All good? Yeah, it's on my pleasure.
Thanks for
All right.
coming.
We do have one last thing. I know we're running a little bit later than we usually do, but,
Downtown lighting improvements?
yeah. So, a little bit of background with this. I believe the select board was looking at the common in terms of more year-round use of ambient lighting, I guess I would try to call it. I know that the Christmas lighting has always been pretty well received, but we're thinking of more, I guess, tasteful year-round improvements. And so some of the changes there, talking about really wanted to kind of hear the EDC's opinion in terms of just use of the common, visibility of the common. I know we have string lighting for a couple businesses in the downtown that was kind of brought up about COVID, and that's always been kind of well received just from like an aesthetics standpoint. But really, what's your opinion on the aesthetics of the common, and if that's something that we want to try to better improve with lighting, or are there additional improvements that we think would be helpful for, I guess, increasing the use of the downtown?
I know an alleyway.
I know, right?
If I may, I really do think they should add some lighting in there.
Yeah.
And I really do like how they light trees up, and either it's from down below, whether you put small lighting in the trees, or you have those lighted light balls that are in the trees and hanging from them and stuff like that. I really think it does add a good ambiance to a small New England town, and that, I know when you go to other cities, especially down south, where they have it up year-round and it's always lit, it's always nice to see, because usually up here in New England, it's only in the summertime and gone during the wintertime, or because a lot of the things they might be taking in, or, but they have added a lot of nice lighting poles on the commons, which are very nice. I know the local businesses was doing that in conjunction with Anderson Electric over the last 15 years or so. They've been adding those, but I really think that other lighting in the trees and doing that is something that's, the common right now, as far as I'm concerned, has looked the best it's ever looked. No doubt about it over the years, but it still can be improved too.
So you're just talking about the greenery part?
Greenery, hardscape, landscape, anything in terms of more landscape lighting. This is a little bit just more, wanted to kind of hear y'all feedback, especially, your opinion.
I think the
on use of
music was
downtown.
wonderful, and they should add it further down the town too.
What was that?
The music they've added to the common is wonderful, and if it could go further down through the CBD district, would be nice.
That's my point too. I think if you come out of, like, if you're going from this top section down and you're passing through like Walpole Cooperative section, once you get past the old town hall, it is very dark at night. I see that all needs to be much more well lit.
That's a good point.
Even into where CVS is, I mean, it's very dark and
Yeah.
that's a private property, but I mean, just the, people are avoiding even going in there now because the two bumps to try to get into the place. When you go in,
Yeah.
it's brutal. And that whole bunch, my mother fell in that parking lot too. But again, very not well, I mean, if that was more well-lit, and then coming back up the town, I think that's, would be very important.
No, that's some good feedback.
Yeah, I agree that the common area looks great, but if it could be kind of a little extended, it might also draw more foot
Yeah.
traffic further down.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, thinking of the banners, right, you're kind of really trying to like highlight, delineate the area, so the lighting helps with that for sure, if you can continue it through Main Street and,
I have been trying to do this for years, so I'm all for it.
yeah.
And also the lighting on the streetlights. If we could work something that, I know we had a problem with that with Anderson, because they own the poles.
You talking about the type of lighting?
lamps
or-
going up and down 1A. With the, that have the banners on them.
Yeah.
The streetlights,
So what do you?
just to light the poles.
Oh,
like
like
to-
the poles,
yeah.
okay.
That was another thing, that, and definitely the three commons.
Yeah.
Lit up.
Okay.
And, like, the trees, like, in front of the post office. And then when we had the trees going up and down 1A, those trees, if we couldn't do the streetlights.
Are they on timers or anything, or are they just not lit?
What are these?
It's just, like, it's, again, it's super dark, but I mean, are there lights already there that are on timers that go on and go off? Or is it just no lighting, far as I see?
Where are you,
Where?
Harry?
Yeah, where, which portion?
I mean, even talking about
The
across,
streetlights?
yeah. I mean, there's just so little of them that it's so dark throughout the center.
Do you mean down 1A, or do you mean up by the
Well,
gazebo, or do you
I keep
mean up
thinking
by the?
Between
little
Stone
turtle
and, even Stone and East,
thing? Yeah,
No, Stone and East, okay.
right through the center of town, the main part of the center of town.
Yeah.
So it's, that's something that did come up, it's a really good, some really good feedback to really provide, because I didn't think of that. I don't think we, I'm just thinking of the common, but that's a really good idea, and if it's, lighting is an issue there, you really wanna try to improve the general area, right? I've also thought about like, and this is more landscape really related, but like, it's a lot of gray, if you're looking at it from somewhere, you have the buildup of the road, and so lighting can help with that too, if there's anything, and we do have planters that go out. If there's another option too, maybe like, street pole, planters, those hanging ones, it's another idea, thought of, helpful, but this is all good feedback, but I appreciate it. Anything else?
Should I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from 4/15/25?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 5th, I'm sorry, April 15th in 2025.
Okay.
second, a few grammatical corrections.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't here at the meeting.
Thank you. All right,
I abstain too.
Yeah, same.
we're good. So
Motion to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.